3 long days until the NFL draft, and the Minnesota Vikings will hopefully improve their roster significantly. What are they going to do to improve the roster? We've been talking about it ad nauseum. So let's talk about kind of how I view this class. We're going to talk about the horizontal board. Do you know what a horizontal board is? If you do, you know exactly why I did it. If you don't, we're going to explain all of it. That and some tidbits that I found out along the way, live on Monday night's episode of the Real Forno Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by the one and only Tyler Forness. A to Z Sports sought him out to be their Minnesota Vikings reporter and NFL analyst. And he's a proud contributor over at SKOL North's Purple Daily. Tyler is also the captivating host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, and a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, in the top left corner, he is producer Dave. Dave, I'm going to start off today by giving you some good news and something that, well, I don't perceive as good news, but I did find it interesting.
First,
Alec Lewis. What?
I need you to focus your camera.
Oh, son of a biscuit.
There we go.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Alec Lewis of The Athletic did a final 7-round mock draft. And the Star Tribune's Ben Gessling did Sam Farmer of the LA Times' beat writer mock draft. Dave, they both picked the same player. Do you know who that player is?
Nick Emenwari.
Grey Zabel.
Hey! All right. Love it.
So I found it interesting that they both picked the same player. And one of the reasons why I found it so interesting, which, as you can tell, my eyes are darting a little bit because I'm pulling up. I wrote an article kind of breaking down them making the selection because I found it interesting. It's less about the fact that they both made the same selection, but I wanted to try and read between the lines because usually those who are closest to the organization are, when it comes to media, are going to be the beat writers. Okay. So when it comes to the beat writers themselves, why are they making this choice? What is the thought process behind making this choice? And being able to read between the lines, you can see, okay, is this going to be like concrete? Like this is the direction they're going? Or is this what they think? And I came to the conclusion that I don't think they know what the Vikings are going to do. And so let me talk about Lewis's. It was really interesting because he just seems steadfast that they're taking an interior offensive lineman. And the reason how I came to this conclusion was how he wrote his blurb. So Zabel is in a cluster of interior offensive linemen who make sense for the Vikings. The pick could just as easily be Alabama's Tyler Booker, but because Booker was my selection in the first mock draft of the cycle, we'll go with Zabel here. To me, that doesn't read like somebody who's uber confident that this pick is going to be Zabel, but they believe it's going to be somebody who helps the interior offensive line. Would you agree with that process?
I agree.
Now, when it came to Ben Gessling, his write-up was a little bit more, we're going to just fortify this unit and completely fix it. So his reads, the Vikings have spent the offseason upgrading a protection unit that gave up 9 sacks and a wild card loss to the Rams, but after they signed Ryan Kelly and Will Fries, they could use one more addition at left guard. It's interesting that they're focusing on that, mainly because what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah talked about in his pre-draft press conference was finding impactful players, like impactful for the now. That was kind of the theme of his press conference. He started off talking about it when he was asked about trade charts and stuff. He really kept with that. So I found it interesting that they're going with left guard based on that. Because, and you know what, maybe I'm just wrong here. I don't see how improving a left guard from Blake Brandel to what Grey Zabel or Tyler Booker is as a rookie is going to be that impactful. Because you would need somebody in order to be like really impactful to completely dwarf what he did when he played next to Christian Darrisaw, he was really good. So I found that part intriguing. Now, getting somebody who you can count on for the long term, like from a long-term sustainability standpoint, okay, I can understand that. But the fact that they both went in that direction, to me, it's in, you know what, it's going to be up to interpretation. We talk about all the time, scouting and stuff isn't art. I will interpret something completely different from Dave, completely different from Norcius in the chat. We're all going to see things a little differently. It's either like they're taking an interior offensive lineman, which I find interesting because I haven't heard any other team outside of the beat talking about it like this, or it's a complete smoke screen. And I found that part to be where my head is coming. Like, if a 1 is they're taking an interior offensive line no matter what, 10 is they won't take one at all, I'm at like a 6.5. I think I'm leaning more towards smokescreen, but I'm not completely saying it's not going to be an interior guy. I think what's going to be interesting is when Ben Gessling does his 7-round mock draft, which comes out, I think, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. That's going to tell me what the Vikings really, really think about what they're going to do. So I know Big Raylan Dad says if you leave Brandon left guard, every defense coordinator will funnel all their blitzes through him. Okay, if he's got Christian Darrisaw next to him, I think he'll be okay. Like, he was really good with Darrisaw. Something I pointed out back in January, something like the rest of the beats finally picking up on, something that Purple Daily has picked up on. 6 pressures in 6 full games with Christian Darrisaw next to him. After that, he allowed the most in the NFL. Playing next to Cam Robinson wasn't really great for this system. I mean, he was solid, but that's kind of why, to me, and even when we go back to the comments from Kevin O'Connell at the Owner's Breakfast, talking about how they still believe in Brandel, and they want to bring in competition for him, but does that competition have to come in form of a first-round pick? It doesn't. Things aren't adding up for me. And it's something we won't be able to fully answer until Thursday, maybe Friday, depending if they trade out of the first round. But Dave, I want to turn this to you because we're being told things kind of out of both ends of the stick, both sides of your mouth. And this is peak lying season. People lie. They lie a lot. Where are you at here?
Oh, for taking Kwesi's comments about looking for an impact player. One, Grey Zabel had the second lowest pressure rate pass blocking out of all linemen last year. Now, it was obviously at the FCS level, but second lowest. And that usually translates. And when he obviously went down to Mobile, he dominated. So could he be an impactful player? Yes. And what do I mean by impactful? If he averages a 65 on PFF grading, and we know how we feel about PFF grading, he's already done better than Blake Brandel did. He will have the benefit also of having Christian Darrisaw to his left and a brand new all-pro center to his right to guide and groom him. And if he lasts 10 years at the position, that's a hell of an impact. And then Blake Brandel can go back to being the swing player at tackle and guard if needed, because we need that as well. And he's proven he can do that. And that's not a bad spot. It generally takes linemen, like I say, years to develop unless they do it straight off the get-go. And Blake Brandel is hit that point. He's basically, we've seen his ceiling. It's good the first few games when he had Darrisaw there, but after that, it dropped. Could he maintain that? Nah. I prefer Grey Zabel. I think he will do just that. And then there's the whole thing, if He can move in the center if he has to. I think that's a bigger impact than even Harmon at DT. And there was rumor that there's some health issues came out today.
Yeah, I've been hearing stuff. I think it's a knee.
I didn't hear about it. I just heard health issues.
I've been hearing stuff behind the scenes, but not enough to like report it for quite a while.
Right.
So the fact that it's kind of leaking now shows that there's a little bit more credence to it than I initially had thought.
But that may be some team trying to drive him down the board.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling somebody over the weekend, I was Zabel's my number one choice. Harmon would be number two. And then we'd probably go Starks or somebody after three. But I just don't want them. And when I told this person, I said, I'm horrible at guessing who this is. I can tell you who I want, but guessing the pick, I'm horrible at, which usually means we'll reach and get some DB that everybody's going to go, he ranked 67th on the big board and you reached for him, sort of type deal. But I think Zabel would permanently this year and in the future, which they're building for. Remember, he talks about we're building for 2 years out as well. Solidify that offensive line as one of the best in the NFL, and we saw how good, solid offensive lines do in the playoffs. It's almost a mandatory thing right now, and it will help JJ McCarthy in his maturity this season as well. So I can see Grey Zabel, but will Kwesi and Kevin do that? Will they go defense for B-Flow? I still don't know. But yes, I'm seeing a lot of trending for Grey Zabel or any of the three guards.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not seeing a lot of actual trending when I'm looking at reading the tea leaves behind what insiders say. Obviously, I don't think anybody looks at more Vikings industry mock drafts than I do. 564 of them so far. Last week, we had 63 of them. 4 people picked Grey Zabel. 37 combined picked Nick M and Warrior Malachi Starks. 44 if you include Jade Barron in there. So safety is still completely dominating the market share. And you and I are going to disagree on Grey Zabel. I think taking him is going to present some similar problems to what you had with Garrett Bradbury, because I just don't think the play strength is there. I don't like his hands. And I have him as a top of the third round guy. And we've debated that quite a bit, so we won't dive into that. We just disagree. And you know what? That's the beauty of scouting, right? We see things differently. One of us is probably going to end up right. We'll find out who it is in about 3 or 4 years.
Or both will end up wrong. That's possible too.
He could just end up a bang average dude. So I find it interesting that both of those guys went Zabel. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because that was really intriguing to me. Considering how Kwesi was talking about impactful player, I don't see taking an interior offensive lineman who's going to make a 2-level jump to the NFL in being impactful right away. But we've seen weirder things before. One thing I did find with Zabel that could play into his advantage, I looked at over the last 15 years, offensive linemen from the FCS level or lower, so that includes D2 and D3, that were taken in the top 64 picks. And how did they translate? We have a much, much smaller sample size, only 18 players. That includes like a Utah offensive lineman the year before they joined the Big 12. But they were still not a Power 5, so it counts. 10 of 18 of them were successful. A couple of them made all pros. So you actually have a better hit rate taking an FCS offensive lineman in the first 2 rounds with that small sample size. But that signal to me isn't very strong. It just says if you take one and you believe the talent's that good, it's not going to impact you like you might think it will. It kind of evens the playing field out, especially when you look at some of the Senior Bowl tape. So there is a pathway for Zabel, and I don't like it. I would be upset if it were the pick. I'm going to be honest.
I've seen some national drafts where he goes before he gets to 24.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle
I've been told
being the first one, and then whoever's just in front of us.
I've been told Tampa Bay has him extremely high on their board, like really high. One thing I did find very interesting was a coworker of mine, Destin Adams at A to Z Sports, got intel. Dave, this made me very, very happy. The Vikings, according to him, are a team to keep an eye out for Alabama linebacker Jahad Campbell if he ends up falling into their laps. Now, there's some injury things. He had surgery on a torn labrum in one of his shoulders. I've heard the other shoulder's also rough, and he's got a bad knee. That's a lot of medical stuff. To my knowledge, not every team thinks he has bad medicals. Medicals it's also a very different kind of thing. It's a scientific art where you could go to 5 different specialists and they all think 5 slightly different things based on what they're looking at, because it's so much harder. You can have all this imaging and you can use it to project, but it's harder if you can't actually physically see it, touch it, inspect it. So
poke it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the Vikings have a history with Kwesi that they believe so high in their medical staff that, hey, maybe they just want to take that kind of risk because that player's that good. I love the player. He made the All Forno team, the only first-round player to make it. He's 7th on my board. I think he could be a game changer on defense because he can do so much. He was an edge rusher coming out of high school, and he played off the ball linebacker, and he can run the pole in Tampa too, flip those hips, and just absolutely sprint with a tight end or slot receiver. And he can play the run with physicality. He can fit it. He can make tackles in the open field. He can get physical with offensive linemen. Just a do-it-all kind of player. So that is something I'm keeping an eye on. I will be very excited if it's Jahad Campbell.
Whereas I'm going to be very excited if they take Grey Zabel.
We're going to find out on Thursday. And you know what? There's a chance the Vikings don't make a pick on Thursday. My prediction of what they're going to do, not based on personal feelings, trying to read between the tea leaves and understand everything, I have them trading down 3 spots with the Baltimore Ravens, and I have them taking Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from Ole Miss. I think the type of player he is, his ability to maneuver, his ability to slant, stunt, rush the passer, they haven't had a guy like that since Sharif Floyd. And Floyd was about to break out, but he had that botched surgery after week 1 of his 4th season. Kevin Williams was a stud for the Vikings, being that kind of pass rusher. They could really use it, and he fits how Flores likes to rush the passer. He fits those stunts and slants. So that's who I'm predicting them to take. Now, he could go 11th. He could go 32nd. His draft is so weird in that sense.
Well, I was about to say, you got your top 10 guys. They're going to go and basically, you can call them blue chippers. Not all. There's only probably 2 in the whole draft class. But your top 10 guys are the good ones. And then you go from 10 to 50, and everybody's about the same. And so if we're going to trade down, you got to have somebody that wants to trade up. Because why would they trade up if they can just wait?
Mm-hmm.
They've got to want to do it. And maybe one of the quarterbacks drop and say Cleveland or New York Giants want to move up. Something like that. That's what I see. San Francisco's doing weird shit this season. Maybe they are wanting to grab more picks. Who knows?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But Dave, do you know what else is very interesting before we get into the real meat and potatoes of this show? Our good friends. Yes, we can. Our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. Look, the NFL season's not here, but guess what? unfortunately, the Pope passed away yesterday, which means Nick Castellanos is probably hitting a home run tonight. And that is something you could have put in your lineup, over or under 1.5 home runs. And every time some kind of event happens, he tends to hit one. That could have been a really fun opportunity for you going into the night. And you know what? All you have to do is pick 2 to 8 of those instances, anytime, any sport, and you can win up to 1,000 times your wager. 1,000 times. Plus, with the promo code Forno, you can get up to 1,000 times your first deposit in bonus credits. You just have to be in one of those states available on the screen. And that's it. It's a lot of fun. I had some fun over Masters weekend. I didn't end up winning, but that's okay. We got to see Rory McIlroy finally get the monkey off his back. So I'm going to take solace in the fact that, hey, my pick on Rory helped him get over the top. Make sure you sign up using that promo code Forno, Forno. And if you end up concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Boom.
Yeah, Rory.
Now, Dave.
Coming out and winning was something.
That was one of the coolest moments in sports in a long time. Like, you could just see he collapsed. And the broadcast was so cool because Jim Nantz is one of the best. And I know there's debate. People think that Paul Allen's call is better than Joe Buck's for the Minneapolis Miracle. I don't think it's better. I think it's different, and then it's a personal preference. They're both so great in their own ways. Joe Buck's calling it for a national audience. Paul Allen's calling it for Steve down the block. He's not calling it for somebody named Joe in California who's a Rams fan. He's calling it for Vikings fans. So there's a different scale here. And Joe Buck, dig, sideline, touchdown, unbelievable, Vikings win it, and then like 30 seconds of silence, letting the pandemonium of the players just maul Diggs in the tunnel. The shots of fans jumping for joy, like, oh my gosh, something finally good happened to us. That we got to see with Jim Nantz. As he's walking up I can't remember what they call it, but walking toward the clubhouse, walking through the fans and giving people hugs and stuff. Nantz doesn't say a word. Lets the moment sink in. That's the beauty of broadcasting. It's a beauty. It was so good. And let me tell you, I love moments like that where you just let the moment speak for itself. Because the images, the sounds, even the silence can tell you everything you need to know. But we're not a golf podcast. We are a Vikings podcast. Dave,
we'll see it when we win the Super Bowl.
Yes, sir.
JJ McCarthy's holding up the Lombardi, and we're hearing the crowd go wild.
And the good part is, McCarthy is full steam ahead. So that rocks. Let's talk, though, Dave, about kind of what this whole show is kind of meant to be about. Because we had a lot of interesting stuff that just came from today. That's why we spent so much time talking about Zabel. We briefly talked about Walter Nolan. And as Yogi says in the chat, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Ring the bell for those notifications. We are going to be your hub on draft weekend. Thursday morning, bonus show. Wednesday night, final show ahead of the draft. Final of the Real Forno Show. Thursday night, after I get back from the Purple Daily Draft Party, we'll be going live around midnight. Why? Because I'm a degenerate and Dave supports me. Friday,
so we will be going. We traded out of the first round. See you tomorrow.
And we're going to talk about it all. Friday, who knows? We might have a show in the morning. That is to be determined. Zero guarantees there. Friday night, we will be live all throughout the second and third round. Saturday, we will be live 4th through the 7th rounds. Sunday, 2 old bloggers, where I just hope Darren chooses to make an appearance. That's all I want.
He will.
And then Monday, the Real Forno Show, we're going to start capping everything off. We're in a great spot. It's going to be a really, really fun time. But having that bell, because that Thursday night, we're just going to go live when we're ready, because it's all based on when I get home. Because it is about a 35-minute drive from the Fillmore downtown. So you're going to want those notifications on. If you're audio, we love you guys too. Dave will get the shows up ASAP so you guys can listen to them on audio form. All right. Let's talk about the main event here today. How I would end up drafting. So if you've never heard of a horizontal board, there are two different types of boards. There's a big board where you're just stacking the talent. I have this guy at 1, I have this guy at 2, and this guy at 3. Oh, we got a question. Brandon asks, hey, Tyler, isn't this whole rookie scale quarterback opinion on a scared mindset? Like, are we wishing we get in a Super Bowl window and get it done before we pay JJ? Sounds like a loser's mentality. No, it's an economics mentality. If you think that he's the dude, you just take advantage of the fact that he's inexpensive, and then you pay him, and then you figure the rest out from there. I don't think it's a scared mentality. I think if you only try to win with a quarterback on a rookie contract, then you could consider that a scared mentality. I just think you're trying to maximize your resources and assets. And if you have JJ McCarthy, who's an 8 out of 10, and Kirk Cousins, who's an 8 out of 10, but you have to pay JJ McCarthy average annual value 9 times less than Kirk Cousins, that's not playing with the loser's mentality. That's just being smart with your dollars.
Yeah, and it's getting you edge rushers and offensive linemen and all sorts of other things that are needed to build up the team.
Yep. So I kind of understand where you're coming from, but I would not call it a loser's mentality. I'd just call it smart economics. But let's get back to the topic at hand, horizontal board. So the way you build a horizontal board is you have it by position and you list where you would take players. So I did not include quarterbacks because they're all day 3 guys who at that, you know what? Who cares? I wasn't going to waste the space on it. But I also didn't include offensive tackles because they ain't taking one. I included a couple offensive tackles who I think project inside the guard. But it's okay. It's not just grades. It accounts for multiple things. How do I see this player? Does he fit? And do the Vikings have a need? So all those things factor in with the horizontal board. So some of my need players are going to be a little higher than some of my players who, now this really isn't a need. Like I have one linebacker before pick 97. That's Jahad Campbell because I think he's a real difference maker. So Dave's going to throw these up with nice graphics that he's got. And it's a little convoluted to look at, so hopefully you'll be able to kind of zoom in. If you are audio or even YouTube, you can go to my Twitter page at the Real Forno, and I've got them pinned on my profile. Oh, I forgot. I did include quarterbacks, but I only included like 5.
And they're later round, guys.
I actually forgot to include Kyle McCord of the quarterbacks. Oopsies. But that's okay. So you'll kind of notice things here as I pull them up. Like out of reach, I don't think you'll get the tight ends. I don't think you'll get Will Campbell. I don't think you'll get Ashton Genty. There's a couple guys like Armand Membao I didn't include because I wouldn't put him inside at guard, so I didn't include him. But like at pick 24, the only offensive players that I would want to just stick and pick, wide receiver Tetoro McMillan, wide receiver Mecca Ibuka, and offensive lineman Kelvin Banks Jr. That's it. Because they're the only realistic options. I wouldn't trade up for anybody. If Genty fell into the teens, maybe. But he's not falling past like 10. So to me, he's just out of reach. So that's kind of how I structured it. Then you have some guys trade down between picks 30 and 50. Trade down between picks 50 and 90. Pick at 97. Between 100 and 130. Pick 139. And then anywhere 150 plus. And then a couple UDFAs. Like one guy I have a UDFA is Tennessee running back Dylan Sampson. I don't really care for him. He goes Zoom, but he plays in such a wonky system that just gifts him a lot of stuff. I just don't want anything to do with that. Not that he's not a good player. I'm just good. So there's some interesting ones. I have Grey Zabel at 97. I have Tyler Booker 100 to 130. Now, the reason I have Booker so low is I just don't think he fits. And quite frankly, I don't know if he'd earn a starting job. So I'm taking that guy later. If I'm the Ravens, I take that guy at 27 and I don't think twice. If I'm the Chargers, I take that guy at 22 and I don't think twice. Not with how the Vikings play football. So there's so many elements here that factor into those decisions, which is why a horizontal board is really nice to just kind of lay it out and see, okay, where would he take this guy? Like I would take Torrey Horton, the wide receiver, between 50 and 90. Wide receiver isn't necessarily a big need, but it's a need because you don't have anybody after Jordan Addison after this next year. You also need to account for a potential suspension for him. You don't want to draft a guy just because of suspension, but that's a factor in all these discussions. Running backs, like I wouldn't take Hampton or Henderson at 24. I'd want a slight trade down. Like if they trade down to 27, okay. I get it. You believe these guys are game changers. All right. I'm for it. But where the Vikings are at, I think the running back room is pretty solid. I'd like to take a guy, but I'd probably take one day 2, day 3. But if you love that guy, just take him. Which is why the horizontal board is such a good concept. And it's something that I would recommend, like anybody who is kind of into this and just wants like a better way to compartmentalize your thoughts, do a horizontal board. It helps you figure out who you would want to take where. I mean, it's not flawless. It's not perfect. But it's a good conceptual piece. Defense, though, as you can see on the right side of the screen, sorry I'm not looking at the camera because I'm actually looking at my spreadsheet. Camera here, spreadsheet here, live YouTube link on the other side. And then if I crank my head like this, I'm looking at Discord. So I have a lot of defenders that I would be willing to take at 24 versus offense. Kenneth Grant, the Georgia edge, Mykel Williams, who I am more convinced every day that I think he should be a Viking. Dave, he plays like Jadeveon Clowney without quite having the freak athleticism, but play style. He's got the long arms. He wants to run you over. He can hold well at the point of attack. Really good run defense. He can shed blocks and do a little bit of two-gapping even at 265 pounds. Plus, at Georgia, they don't teach you how to rush the passer, so you have a whole new unlocked potential right there at your fingertips. Travon Walker didn't know how to rush the passer at Georgia. Last 2 years, he's had 10.5 sacks. Like, you can get these guys to do that.
Sort of like Danielle Hunter coming out of LSU.
Mm-hmm. These guys have to do so much when it comes to stopping the run in college that sometimes they just aren't asked to rush the passer. So you can unlock those things. And because he has the flexibility to do stuff on the inside, guess where the Vikings have a need? Interior. You can do things. The NASCAR package would be great with a guy like Mykel Williams. Jahad Campbell, obviously. 2 corners. Savon Revel Jr. It's not Siobhan, it's Savon. So that's something I've had to get out of my head. Will Johnson from Michigan and Malachi Starks, who I wrote a piece earlier today. I think Malachi Starks is a better athlete than his relative athletic score and generic testing would show. And I think the Jordan Addison pick really opens eyes to why Malachi Starks could end up being the pick. Because the GPS data and the movement skills are tremendous. And that data shows how great of movement skills he has. So I think it becomes a little bit more likely in that scenario. Nick Amenwari and Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron's probably the one people I have the most questions about. I think he's a safety at the NFL level. I think he's nickel. The stuff that Minkah Fitzpatrick does, where he plays slot, he plays deep, he does a little bit of everything. I think that's what I would do with Jahdae Barron. I don't think he's a long-term outside corner. And I know others disagree with me. And you know what? I think it would be fair to give him a chance at outside corner. But I view him more as a safety. You also see Quincy Riley's up there really high. Look, I'm the highest in the industry on him, especially when you look at Reef's consensus board. Reef Hassan of Wide Left released his consensus board yesterday on Sunday. He told me, I am the highest in the industry. The highest in the industry, Dave, on Quincy Riley. I am not just the highest, Dave, in the industry on Quincy Riley. I am the highest on 6 other players. One of them is Travis Hunter, so that doesn't count. I'm higher than everybody on Texas A&M edge rusher Shamar Stewart, Savon Revel Jr., the corner of East Carolina, Quincy Riley, Jamari Caldwell, the defensive tackle Oregon, DJ Giddens, the running back Kansas State, Trevor Etienne, the running back Georgia. I'm higher than everybody that he's collected so far. And I'm okay with that. I try so hard to not listen to consensus. I try to just go with my eyes, go with my research. If I'm wrong, I'll learn from it. If I'm right, I'll learn from it still. But I have Riley, Trey Amos, and Maxwell Hairston, the Ole Miss and Kentucky corners, Nick Emenwari and Johnny Barron, the safeties. Then a lot of defensive linemen and secondary players between 50 and 90. So there are some interesting names here. JT Tui Maloau from Ohio State. Not a hyper athlete, hyper productive, great effort rusher. Really got a lot of core strength. He's a guy that you would just have on your team. He'd be a really good run defender, get you 8 sacks a year for a decade. Like Brian Robinson was like bendy. This is kind of Brian Robinson in like a bigger body. Like if you think of what the player's supposed to be. A good secondary pass rusher who's going to play solid football for you. I'd take that guy at 70. Sounds like a good bet. There's some really good players. I think Jamari Caldwell, the nose tackle, is just really, really, really good. I love him. And then you've got cornerbacks, Benjamin Morrison. He's got the medical red flags. Kobe Bryant, Azariah Thomas, Darian Porter Jr., who's older and raw, but he's also an elite special teamer. So as you're trying to figure it out, you're getting something plus out of him right away. But yeah, there's some interesting ones. Defensive tackle, I wouldn't take Omar Norman Lott until like late day 3 because I just don't know if that guy's a true NFL football player. If you're a DPR, man, he can't play the run. He's like 315 pounds and he stinks against the run. It's bad. I would prefer not to have that guy. But round 6, pick 200. All right, I'll take the chance. But some people want to take it in like top 50. And to me, that feels crazy. It's possible. I'm just out to lunch. And that's all right. Kwang, thanks for stopping in. We appreciate you and everybody else who's been in the chat tonight. So, yeah, that's kind of how I built the horizontal board. There are some interesting placements of different players, but that's okay. Everybody's going to have different spots like, whoa, what are you doing? And you know what? I think that's what makes some of this fun. Dave, obviously you put this together. What do you think?
It's called copying and pasting.
Yes.
Robbie says Billy Bowman has 28-inch arms and a 20% missed tackle rate. Is he one of those diminutive backs? He's got to be small to have 28-inch arms.
Which one?
Billy Bowman.
Yeah, he's an interesting one. Man, those are really short arms. I didn't realize he had that short of arms. But good football player.
They're tiny. No, I understand how you set this up. I've done horizontal boards, and then I've done running horizontal boards per draft round and position. It helps when you're making decisions of who do we want to take and when. Say we get to the 24th pick. Who on your list is still available above it? And you look and you say, hey, Will Campbell's still on it. Let's grab him. Or if he even gets close, like Turner last year, you go, oh, no, we're going to go get him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very good way to organize your thoughts and your game plans. It's when you have two guys or more that are up there, and then you get into the decision matrix that Kwesi talked about that I would love to get a copy of on how they determine between two players or multiple players which one they're taking. But that's where the debate in the draft room comes in. Because you go, we got three guys that are available that's still on the board above where we're selected to pick. And then get the last minute. No, you got to take this guy. No, you got to take this guy. No, you got to take this guy. Coach, what's the tiebreaker? Type deal.
Yeah. I think that's a really good shout and something I haven't mentioned yet. I have 9 players that I would feel comfortable taking right at 24 in that range. So let's assume everybody above that line is gone. I have 9 players at 24. If all 9 are there, I could trade back to 32 and still get one guaranteed. And this is how teams will end up manipulating the board. Because if they have a bunch of guys they love, but they're not 100% sure who they want to take, oh, well, we have 9 guys that we have in the same cluster. Well, let's trade down. And then as we trade down, we can have those conversations as the next picks come off the board. Okay, I want this guy over this guy. Oh, that guy's gone. Perfect. Now we can take this guy. Like, those are the conversations you have in the room. So
as long as you can find somebody that wants to trade for your pick.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like the Browns and the Chiefs are 2 that have already been connected to the Vikings. I wonder if an edge rusher falls, if the Ravens or Eagles might be willing to jump up, and how high might they be willing to go. It'll be interesting to see how that manifests. I could not for the life of me tell you which one. But who trading up, there's going to be a lot of different things. There's going to be a lot of things that you can kind of maneuver with. So, and I don't know. It's going to be fun. I'm really excited for the draft. Thursday's finally here. Draft weekend is like my busiest and most fun weekend of the year. I love doing this. I love sitting around. I love talking stuff like horizontal boards. It's a great time. It's a great time. We're going to have so much fun here. Dave, do we have any questions in the chat that I might have missed that we can answer before we go here?
Not that I've seen. Scroll through real quick. Bulldog asks, will Bo Richter have an increased role this year?
It depends on what increased role is. I don't think he's going to get many defensive snaps, if that's what you're asking. And he's going to be a core special teamer, maybe 5 to 10 defensive snaps a game at most. Like, I think he'll get some run, but I don't think he's going to be like this major difference maker. He's not going to come in and play 25, 30 snaps a game. That's my on it. We'll see. Maybe he's shown a lot of growth over the summer, and he gets an opportunity because he's got versatility with edge and playing off the ball. So maybe that impacts. Who knows? There's a lot of athleticism with Richter too. But he also has like 30.5 inch arms, which are very tiny. Same with Gabe Murphy. So I'm curious what
30.5, yes.
Yes.
I was about to say 35-inch arms are long.
If Gabe Murphy had 35-inch arms, that dude would have gone top 40.
And stand up and scratch your knees at the same time, yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is an interesting one. Ty D. SKOL says, I love the draft, but isn't really a lot to do about nothing since the draft is random? Kind of, but you can find edges within the random. Odie, stop licking your paws, please. You can find, like, it's not like the lottery where you're waiting on balls to pop up and you hope that they're the right ones. It's about trying to figure out what this data means. Everybody has the same data, essentially. How do you interpret it? How do you decipher it? Who's going to be right on that? It's kind of random, but it's also not random at all. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but there's a lot of strategy and understanding about what each player is that makes it a lot less random. Like, bad GMs can still take great players, but the really good GMs are way more consistent.
Yes.
And I think Kwesi is trending a little more towards the more consistent side. I liked what he did the last 2 drafts. It's had some real bad luck, too. Like the Kyrie Jackson passing away, Mekhi Blackman tearing his ACL. But if Blackman comes back and plays really well this year, all of a sudden you have 2 like essentially top 100 picks hit in 2023, excuse me. That's a win. Blackman was 102, so it's almost the top 100 pick. And then if JJ McCarthy and Dallas Turner both hit, that's a win. Now you're feeling pretty good about how Kwesi adofo-mensah drafts. Now, the 2022 draft is still going to be a stain on his resume until he puts together more positive things. But there's still a good amount to like there. So the draft is kind of random, but it's also not. It's an interesting dichotomy and discussion point, though. But what isn't random is that this show ends around 7 o'clock, and we are going to call it a night here. We have a lot more coming up. Tomorrow night.
One more question.
Oh, what's that?
Narcius
Ricky
asks,
White.
What do you think of Ricky White?
Ricky White's interesting. Do you want a guy who's blocked like 9 punts in college? Because that's Ricky White. I think he'll be an average wide receiver, but could be an elite special team. Like elite special teamer. So I think that's really interesting. I think a late round flyer, absolutely. If he goes undrafted, Vikings need to call. Don't say what to Collar. That the draft isn't that random. I mean, it is, but it isn't, because you can. Like, you're not picking balls out of a hat. You have a lot of information about that kind of stuff. So even though it feels random, you can find like data points to show that, hey, I feel pretty confident that this guy's going to hit or this guy's going to miss, so we're going to pass. And in that sense, it's not random. So it is an interesting discussion point. But I think, and I don't know Collar's full take on it, but my guess is Collar is a lot more nuanced than just saying that it's random. And his idea is, even if you have all this information, it's still random if the guy's going to hit or miss, which that part is true.
Right.
But I would
all
still
see the ski slope graph of first rounders down to undrafted free agents and how many players succeed. It's never 100%. It starts at like 60%. So the top 40%, even in round 1, don't hit. And that's the randomness of it, is that you've got to be able to identify the ones that do, and not all GMs are good at it. We talked about the greatest GM in Vikings history yesterday on 2 old bloggers.
Who is the best Vikings GM?
The first one, Jim Finks.
Finks, okay. He's in the Ring of Honor, isn't he?
He's in the Ring of Honor. He's in the Hall of Fame. He was the one that hired Bud Grant in March of '67. And then he and Grant had the best draft in history, '67 draft. And of course, we went to 4 Super Bowls. After he departed, he went to Chicago. What did he do in Chicago? He assembled the '85 Bears before he retired. Okay. He is literally has a higher hit rate than most all GMs ever. He rocked. And we hope Kwesi can develop into that sort of GM with his new, different approaches. But we'll see.
Yeah. So there's one more thing I want to mention in the chat. Then we're going to rattle off all the stuff again this week so you guys know what's going on. Kymer DK from Florida. That's a dude I would love at the end of the draft. Why? Oh, he's got untapped potential. Does a lot of similar things play style wise to Puka Nacua. He's not Puka Nacua. That's why I want to emphasize play style. He does a lot of the same things with the blocking and has a lot of potential running routes over the middle, doing deep crossers, that kind of stuff. And he's got 4.33 speed, which hell yeah, could be an elite special teamer. Like that's the kind of guy I want to take a bet on at the end of the draft. Because you know what? Drafting on day 3 isn't just about trying to find a guy like Stephon Diggs. Yeah, you want to hit those all day long. But it's also about other factors too. You want to find guys to build the back end of your roster. You need to find the special teamers. You need to find the depth guys. Those win Super Bowls more often than stars do because they are the ones who are more likely to make mistakes. Those critical mistakes can ruin a Super Bowl. They can ruin your chance to win the title. So it's so important to get those right. And a guy like DK and Ricky White, great special teamers. That matters. Special teams wants to be invisible. They don't want to be the highlights. Because if they're the highlights, they usually screwed up. So having those guys is very important. And DK, I'd be all for it. 100%.
It'll be very cool.
Yeah.
Now, let's go over the schedule one more time.
Yep. Tuesday night, tomorrow, as Merlin barks in the background.
Yeah, sorry.
Odie would never do such a thing. Sal, Scolders and Spice, has ESPN's Jordan Reed on the show.
No, that's not tomorrow night. That's tomorrow. That'll come out hopefully around noonish, maybe a little bit earlier in the afternoon. Tomorrow night, Tuesday is 2 for Sal. We got it special. Sal's got the guest of her former Believe in partners doing their draft special Tuesday night. Live.
All right. And then Wednesday, we'll be here to break down. I can't even remember what I texted you. I have a plan. It's written down. We're going to do a final Vikings mock draft discussion about kind of who my preferred players are at the spot and all the latest rumors and news. And then Thursday, we're going to talk about what the industry thinks. That will be at noon, maybe a little later, but not earlier. I will also be on Purple Daily Thursday morning at 10 a.m. So you're going to have a lot of us. Friday night, we're going to be doing the draft. Saturday afternoon, we're going to be doing the draft. Rounds 2 through 7 completely live. And then Thursday night after round 1, time to be determined, we'll be going live to talk about the first round of the draft. Last year was around 45 minutes to an hour. This year will probably be around the same time. You won't want to miss it. It's going to be a really good, fun week. And the Vikings hopefully end up a lot better when it's all said and done. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. And if you're listening on audio, hit the subscribe button as well. And spike those downloads for us. We appreciate it.
Yes,
I'm Tyler. He's Dave. Thank you guys so much. SKOL Vikings, everybody.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!